I love sci-fi movies, and usually those are always accompanied by great scores or like really cinematic synths and chords. I'm a big visual person too, so everything that I make, I'll usually have a visual running on my computer, like a loop, maybe of like old Blade Runner or...
That's interesting. While you're producing the
Yeah, because it's almost like sometimes I'm like trying to score that moment, you know, you know, there was a period in time where I used to love the scene in Blade, you know, the beginning scene in Blade where it's like the blood is coming out of the rain showers. Yeah. And then Blade like shows up out of nowhere. And I used to love to put that on loop because it was just, I wanted to make like just very hard hitting, you know, like kind of house club stuff, raw synths. And so I shelved it actually for like 9 months. Then I came back to it once I was finding that new confidence of like the house club driven lane I was doing, like Experts Only. And John, he ended up playing it without me even really knowing he was going to play it. He played it at his Experts Only festival in New York. And the response was crazy. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I wasn't there, but he played that night and I woke up in the morning and I was just tagged in so many things, or I was seeing so many videos of like where they were like, what's this ID? What's this song that John played? And
it's Powertools, and we got Sage Devault in the house. How are you doing, my man?
Doing great. Very happy to be here.
It's awesome to have you here. You're an LA or Orange County native?
Yes.
You grew up in Orange County?
Yeah, Southern California, pretty much born and raised. I mean, I was born in Northern California, but when I was very young, my parents came here. So I pretty much say I'm raised in Southern California.
Got it,
but yeah.
Got it. And, I mean, you've had releases like on Experts Only, Black Book, Insomnia, Ultra, big collabs with John Summit, Zoo, Bipolar Sunshine. But let's go back to the beginning of Devault. You're in Orange County. How did you find your passion for dance music?
You know... It's a bit of a long story, but I'll keep it a little bit brief. But basically, when I was around like 12, 13 years old, my older brother came home with just randomly one day with like a digital controller set. And that was at the time when like DJ Hero came out and and that was like something I used to like play with when I was like super young. And he came home with it and I just immediately fell in love with the idea of putting like 2 records together. And that was kind of at least my initial love for like DJing. So every day, all day, I would take like a Drake vocal, put it over a Kaskade song.
And did you know how to mix it on beat? You knew the BPMs?
No, I just kind of learned as I went, you know. And that was back during the blog era too, so I'd listen to people's mixes and I'd listen to like, you know, when Skrillex was like, or Pretty Lights was on This Song Is Sick, you know, these blog eras. I just fell in love with remixing and all of that. And then outside of that, my parents... You know, my dad introduced me to like early electronic music, like the Prodigy, Fat of the Land. He used to have that in his car. He'd blast it full blast. And I used to love like Firestarter and Breathe. And those records were insane. And then my older brother, you know, he just really put me on to great music, like early Kaskade, early Deadmau5, or like Bloody Beetroots, Crookers.
And this is what you're mixing on this little controller.
Yeah. On this little digital controller. I think I was using like Virtual DJ Pro or like one of those old... DJ sites. And I just fell in love with it. And that kind of, once I did that for about like 5 or 6 years. And once I got to like 17, 18, that's when after DJing, you know, like high school parties and like.
Were you DJing high school parties on this little controller?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
I was DJing quinceañeras. I was DJing like, you know, early birthday parties.
What was your DJ name back then?
Oh, man. Okay, so I had a few. When I first started, it was like DJ Danger when I was like 12 to 15 years old.
I like it.
Then I did, this is a deep one because maybe some early fans, who knows, but I was like Janet Jack's son. Like imagine like Janet Jack, like with the apostrophe, which it was already too hard to explain and was awful. Then it turned into like D.Vault and then it eventually became Devault once I got to like 18, 19.
Got it.
Yeah.
Did you put out any records as the Janet Jack?
No. It used to just be like mashups because I was back when I was still only like DJing and I would just kind of like do, you know, just acapellas over instrumentals. But yeah, that's how I originally like got into what I'm doing now.
So when you were doing mashups, and I think I read you were really inspired by DJ AM, rest in peace. And what about his set and his style did you gravitate to? Yeah,
I mean, his story's obviously incredible. I first fell in love, I forgot what it was called, but he used to put out these like mixtapes or albums that were like super mashups, you know, where he'd take like 7 records, put them into one. And I used to just fall in love with the feeling of like hearing. I remember he did like an edit with like Sweet Child of Mine mixed in with like a hip hop record, and the way he was like scratching and turntabling was just like insane.
Right.
And I just loved that he kind of almost really popularized the like idea of being a frontman like DJ, you know?
Right.
Because he was kind of one of the first ones to like do Vegas and
right.
And he was did that iconic set too, like dressed as Daft Punk for that like Halloween set, I think for like an early like
at Heart.
Yeah. And seeing that very young, I want to say I was like maybe 9 or 10, but yeah, from like 9 to 12, I really just loved everything he did and his mashups and like I want to say it was another person too was like Girl Talk, I think, but they it was just like that mashup, and I think that's so funny because now in like the TikTok era, like mashups and speeding things up and slowing things down is like so huge, but they were like so early and they just made things feel refreshing. That's kind of like a mantra or like kind of an ethics I keep is everything I want to do production wise or style wise just has to feel like, a refreshing step forward, at least for my ears. And then hopefully the people listening feel that too.
So then when you started DJing, you're more on the mashup stuff. How did you eventually get into like the more electronic, darker stuff?
Yeah, I think obviously it stemmed from like, my dad showing me like Prodigy and I loved like 80s artists like Depeche Mode, The Cure. And I think it just got to a point of like longing to being like, okay, like I'm mashing up stuff. And now I'm starting to add some drums to things. And it just kind of felt like more of a need to just start adding my style or like my like quote unquote story or my feel to records. And, I was young and just wanted to make the plunge into dance production, and I was just self-taught myself, fell in love with it. It was like learning a new language, you know. It's just like a year or two of really understanding the broad terms and the initial things, and then I started finding my voice. But it really just kind of stemmed from a longing from like DJing so much, like, okay, I have a knack for this, I have an ear for it, so how can I now apply it to like my actual like sound?
And you got like, once you started getting your sound, you got your big kind of like start on SoundCloud, right? That was like a big platform for you.
Yeah. I originally started by doing a bunch of remixes on SoundCloud that started to do really well. And then one of my, I think, big kind of moments was I had an opportunity to do an official remix for Rihanna for Sex With Me, like on her album in like 2016, 2017. It happened through, I was in New York for one of the first times, and I just had a random opportunity to meet this guy, Bruce Carbone at
I know
Def
Bruce
Jam.
Carbone. Oh my God.
Yes. And shout out Bruce.
Back. Yeah.
And he was like, we were showing him some records of mine and showed him some remixes. And he was like, tell you what, I have these stems for this. If you crush it, we'll make it happen. And I crushed it. And that kind of like got me into, from SoundCloud land into like, okay, this is my first step into like the real industry.
That's a
and,
big step.
Huge
From
step.
SoundCloud to Rihanna, that's like monumental.
Yeah, it was nuts. For that being my first ever official remix was pretty crazy. And shout out him. So that's kind of how I initially really got started, was from there.
Nice. I did many remixes for Bruce Carbone, for Crystal Waters, all his artists. He's great, man. He's
a
awesome,
legend,
man. Yeah. So then, like at the beginning, when you're starting to produce, you're on some more like EDM trap vibes at the beginning, like 2016.
Yeah.
And then you kind of moved on to like some industrial dance vibes. If I wanted to like paraphrase it, but eventually you got like into like producing house music. And I want to say, and I may be wrong, but I think the first song that I feel was like Don't Be Alarmed with Bipolar Sunshine was like proper house. Like what made that switch from like, okay, I'm done with this, I'm moving on to this?
Yeah, I think my sound or my world has always been like dark, moody, cinematic. Right. And I think one of the biggest crutches I had early on was I had like some songs that, maybe were having success streaming, but they just weren't really translating in a club environment. So that was something I was kind of having a tough time with, where it's like, maybe it's records that people can listen to on a drive or in their bedrooms, but at the end of the day, You know, I'm a dance artist, and that's...
And you weren't able to play them in the club.
Yeah, because even when I played them necessarily, or if I tried to play them in the club, they weren't really like dancey records. You know, maybe they're electronic, but they're more so like sitting back and cinematic and driven. So I kind of realized within myself I had to rewire my brain a little bit. And I knew like Four to the Floor, like house drums was something I always loved. It was just more so I never really applied it to my sound fully. And I felt the next step of my career was, you know, engaging in more of just club-driven music. And I think once I figured that out, understanding like, okay, the records that I'm making, I want to go around the world and play them at clubs. I want DJs to play them. Once I kind of like rewired my brain to how I arrange stuff to that, I think everything started to click. Right. And yeah, the Don't Be Alarmed record, shout out Bipolar Sunshine. I've made a bunch of songs with him. He's a great vocalist, great dude. But yeah, like those kind of records were still early on.
Right, early on. Even like Playing with Fire. Yeah. That was still early on, but that was like, whoo.
Yeah, very
that had to start giving you some confidence.
Yes, exactly. And I was doing these tapes that were more industrial, but like slower tempos. But then I started getting like, you know, faster and faster. And then, I just kind of made a full plunge, I want to say, the past like 18 months. Right. Of really switching over to more just like house club driven music with what I'm doing. Right. And it's really paid off because it's like resonating in a way where I think the fans that initially found me are re-excited, and now for like new fans, they think, you know, it's a new sound or a new world for me. So it's great. Right. Yeah.
Now that you said Depeche Mode was an inspiration, that kind of, I hear when I'm listening to the industrial stuff, I hear the Depeche Mode. Yeah. The drums, the vibes.
Yes. And big thing that I got to do on one of my like EPs like 2 years ago is with Slater, we like got to cover Behind the Wheel, and they cleared it, and I got to put it out. So having like Depeche Mode clear that was really, really awesome, because Behind the Wheel is one of my favorite records from them. And having Slater too, who we did a few records together, like having her cover that because she loves Depeche Mode as well, that was like a really special moment for us to come together and like pay homage a little bit.
So you've been dropping a bunch of heaters like Blow Your Brain Cell, Let Me Clear My Throat, Belgium, and then you finally land on like Feels Like Us with Gigi Grumbacher. Am I saying that right?
Grombacher? Oh man, she's gonna kill me for this not knowing it. No, I think it's Gigi Grombacher.
Okay,
I want to say.
All right, we'll go with that.
Man, I hope she doesn't kill me for that.
She's not gonna kill you.
She never told me how to pronounce her last name, but her
vibe on that record is incredible. Yeah. When did you know that record was connecting different than your other records?
Man, I had an initial version of it that I didn't really like, actually, where it was more cinematic. It was more like, you know, lacked the club energy. So I shelved it actually for like 9 months. Then I came back to it once I was finding that new confidence of like the house club driven lane I was doing, applied that. And I want to say when I like thought it was like a great record and could have a lot of momentum was like Experts Only, and John, he ended up playing it without me even really knowing he was going to play it. He played it at his Experts Only festival in New York, and the response was crazy. I wasn't there. Okay, right. I wasn't there, but he played that night, and I woke up in the morning and I was just tagged in so many things, or I was seeing so many videos of like where they were like, "What's this ID? What's this song that John played?" And it just kind of like spiraled into like people just asking for it, wondering, is this like a John record? Is this a Kaskade record? Is this a Devault record? It led to like everybody just wondering what it was, and it led to all this traction. And then I realized, I was like, man, this song is becoming bigger than, you know, I expected, and now it led to, you know, being here now and a ton of great things. Yeah.
Nice. Now you've also had some pretty dope mentors with like DJ Snake and Zoo.
Yeah.
Like, what did you take away from each one of them?
I think, with both of them, they're very different but great in their own ways. I think what I learned from being around these guys is they have such like a brand ethos that they like always keep, no matter like, you know, they've both been around for like a decade, longer, but they always keep such a strong brand ethos of like the certain things that they always keep aligned with their world. And I love that. Like, I feel like the artists that have the most longevity is they are so like their branding in their world is so unique to them. and it goes down to the sonics too. So you know when it's a Zoo record, you know when it's a Snake record. So that's kind of the thing I learned is, and something I've been doing since I was younger. I've always had a very unique sound and a unique kind of like the way I use FX or the way I do drums. I kind of noticed that it became my signature over time. So I've just always kind of kept that no matter what. Like, yeah, I'll evolve, but I always try and keep a, you know, even sonically and visually, I always just try and keep like a little bit of an ethos because that's what I realized with them. And yeah, they're a decade in and they're still doing incredible things.
They're crushing it. And that even led for you to collab with Zoo.
Yeah.
On a couple of songs.
Yeah.
That had to be like really, really cool.
Yeah. You know, I've always admired him. I've always admired his world. And we connected through actually like a lot of, you know, older bands and like 80s, 90s music and some like new kind of like techno stuff that's been like, you know, crushing lately. And that's how we initially connected. And yeah, I feel like sonically the records that we did at the time, even though they were more like slower, they just fit our worlds great, you know? And I will say this too, I think something that really got me into the club scene is there was a random night where he did like a random LA show and he brought me to do a back-to-back. And it was like 100 degrees, like in a warehouse, sweating, like everybody's just pouring sweat. And we got to play a bunch of records and it was like a great like moment online too. Right. And that kind of helped, I think, really helped for me to bring my world together of like, oh, this is the Devault sound and this is what a Devault show's like. This is what the energy's like. So things started really meshing because of that. And yeah, shout out him.
You have said the word cinematic a few times. Where did you get the idea or who inspired applying cinematic to electronic music? Was it like old Moby? Where do you get that from? Where's that inspiration from?
I'm a big cinephile. I love movies. I get it a lot from like obviously Hans Zimmer stuff, but I love like Denis Villeneuve and all those movies like Arrival, the Dune series. I'm a big sci-fi head. I love sci-fi movies, and usually those are always accompanied by great scores or like really cinematic synths and chords. And I think just by watching movies, I'm a big visual person too. Right. So everything that I make, I'll usually have a visual running on my computer, like a loop, maybe of like old Blade Runner or...
That's interesting. While you're producing the music.
Yeah, because it's almost like sometimes I'm like trying to score that moment, you know, or, you know, there was a period in time where I used to love the scene in Blade, you know, the beginning scene in Blade where it's like the blood is coming out of the rain showers. Yeah. And then Blade like shows up out of nowhere. And I used to love to put that on loop because it was just, I wanted to make like just very hard hitting, you know, like kind of house club stuff, raw synths and just having fun. But yeah, so that's where it really derives from. I wouldn't say from like a music artist. It's more so from movies. I'm a big
Do you
movie
still
person.
do that now with the house stuff or...
You
have a Ibiza video on.
yeah, right. Yeah, like Solomon, Boiler Room or something. No, but it's evolved a little bit for sure. I think now what I've been having a great time with is, I've been like watching like more long like mixes from like the 2000s and like 2010s, whether it's like in Europe and
where mixes were like 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
8 minutes long. Are you talking about single or
No,
DJ
I'm talking
sets?
both too. So it's like DJ sets as well.
Yeah.
Because I've been just super inspired by like certain moments in a set, whether in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. And it kind of helps. It's been helping like curate how I'm doing my sets and also how I'm approaching my music. Because it's like with Feels Like Us, it seems like a record that I love to like really put in the middle of my set, because it almost is like I like to come in high energy and then Feels Like Us is kind of this dark, moody, anthemic moment
kinda
that I think resets things to then come back up.
Right.
And then, you know, like a recent record I just put out with like Can't Wait No More is kind of more so to be like a hard hitting intro.
That's,
you know,
that tune is my shit, bro. That tune is dope. The vocal, the old school 90s vocal. I mean, that's a dope record. And so you're kind of like, you're making the record and you're like, this song is for earlier on in the set. Yeah. This song is for the middle of my set. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of been a unique way because like at the end of the day, like, you know, because I have some plans coming up with some big like, you know, shows, and, you know, I really want it to be front to back Devault. And so it's funny. There's even like a record like Let's Begin seems like something that can be the outro or the intro of my sets, you know, too. Because I really just want to formulate this perfect, you know, journey of a like, you know, a 90-minute set of just pure Devault. And so I feel like I'm just like slowly puzzle piecing everything with the new music, which is cool. Yeah.
Does that include some of the industrial stuff, maybe sped up?
Yeah, of course. I think there's elements that I think maybe for like really OG fans that have been with me since the very beginning, I always love to try and sprinkle that into like my big headline shows. Because I always get like DMs or people asking like, hey, can you play this record from like 2018 or 2019? And I'm like, oh shit, I really like my new stuff right now, but I'm like, oh, okay, I want to find a way to make it work where it's like, you know, kind of if you listen to like Skrillex or like Daft Punk from like the live 2007 mix, I mean, it's just so much ear candy and like, you know, what you call it, like Easter eggs, where they're like, oh, this moment from this song from like the 90s when they put it out. And then I kind of want to start doing more of that, where it's like there's a 30-second moment where like real fans will know, oh, this was the synth from, you know, this was the synth line from, you know, Play With Fire or, you know, and they're like, oh shit. And then I bring it back into a new.
You know what I love about you is you're a study of the game. Like you're studying the past, analyzing it, but applying it in your own way. So it's fresh, but you actually go in, this is what they're doing. That's the synth. Like you're really analyzing.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I want to say like, you know, there's some artists that are like fully like original and they make something that like nobody's heard before, but that's like such rare people. I'm aware that what I'm doing is I'm like a melting pot of like I'm a big like stew. Or like soup of all the like artists that I love, whether it's Depeche Mode, DJ AM, you know, The Prodigy, or like, you know, Kaskade, or, you know, even like some of the recent stuff that I've been loving. I'm just kind of like taking those things that excite me and then finding my voice. And then since I've been doing it for a while, I've just really found my signature through it. And my fans and people now like fully understand it too, which is great.
What is the one song that is like, not that you've done, but like your inspiration, like your go-to song? I want to listen. I need to make a song as good as this.
Oh man!
Like if you had to break it down to one, like your one favorite electronic song, like man, I wish I could do something.
I want to say one I've been coming to like all the time is like Eric Prydz Opus. That's like a record, like
100%.
From start to finish. And I love his story about it too, where he just made it like I think on a tour bus or like really randomly, and he just showed one person like, this is something I'm working on, and it like and the person hearing it was like, oh my god, this is incredible. But yeah, that record I come back to.
Yes, okay.
And I love things that just like feel like an absolute journey from like start to finish. So definitely that Eric Prydz Opus is one of those tunes.
Nice,
for sure.
So what else does Devault have working or in the works for the rest of 2026? A lot of music coming out. What else? You got some tours you're talking about?
Yeah. I'm doing a lot of touring. I'm very excited playing Lollapalooza for the first time.
Nice.
Playing Electric Force for the second time. I'm very happy to be back there. I'm going to Japan for the first time, doing a few shows out there. I've heard great things, the energy out there. Music-wise, I have obviously Can't Wait No More just came out. Really stoked to kind of do more of a banger with Experts Only, because I know Feels Like Us and Shades of Blue have been kind of more the melodic tunes. So this was kind of going back to like just my hard-hitting stuff. And then, I got a lot of great, I think if people, you know, obviously really enjoyed like Feels Like Us and Can't Wait No More, I'm really diving full into those worlds and trying to make those songs, but on steroids.
And these sets are all Devault music?
Yeah, a lot of it is. And then, you know, I love playing people like Chris Lake, Chris Lorenzo. Like Maupi. I love what those three guys are doing right now, like sound-wise, is great.
Chris Lorenzo with the breaks right now is just crazy.
Oh, man. He's, you know, I think he's like one of the most underrated guys. I mean, everything 100%. he drops is, I feel like, played by everyone. And it's like, even if you think like it's like a B-side or just like a casual drop he's doing, it's just like incredible. So yeah, I love what he's doing. But yeah, my sets are like primarily becoming more and more me, and then I'll sprinkle those in. And then I love kind of, you know, remixing, you know, older records too, like I said.
And you're remixing stuff just for your sets for right now.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I have a few things that are like, uniquely just for me.
Right.
Which I think is cool because it gives people, a longing to actually want to come to the live show to hear the edit rather than it being on SoundCloud or other DJs are playing it. Yeah.
Oh, you won't even put it on SoundCloud or anything.
No. Sometimes it's just cool to exist in the live ether.
I agree 100%. At least for about 9 months or so, or 10 months, then you can let it out.
Let it loose.
But give them something original, fresh that they can only hear at that show.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Well, it's awesome, man. I love all the music you're doing. You got a great vibe. You're a great student of the game, and that's really, really dope to see. You don't see that a lot from artists. And I'm excited about more music coming out, man.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Got a lot of big plans, and also for Los Angeles as well, because I got to shout out LA because I've been doing a lot of great shows here. But I have a very big one just from all the recent kind of momentum and good energy around the project. I have a very big LA show coming that I'm very excited about.
Is that this summer, fall?
It's going to be in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very, very excited. Well, we got to have you out for that.
Right, for sure. I'll come and hang. Well, thanks for coming on Powertools, man.
Yes. Thank you.
Powertools.